Generally speaking, I'm feeling more and more like I don't want to do any social media at all. And the same main objection keeps coming up inside of me every time I go to like share content or create content. Like, it's just going to make people more addicted to their phones or more attached to their phones. But of course, that could just be a reflection of what's going on inside me. Like, I don't want to use my phone. I feel like my phone is like one of the worst things for me at this point. But then again, like, am I just going to keep removing things from my life until there's nothing left? That's a weird dilemma of somebody who, like, a little bit of backstory for anybody who hasn't followed the whole journey. Like, I was once addicted to everything. So I guess I've kind of swung the pendulum the other way, and now I don't want anything to do with anything that is moderately addictive. Like, even sugar now. Like, I'm just moderating my sugar out of my life completely. And like technology, and just I don't want to be compelled by like a feeling that feels like need, which like I don't want to be addicted to anything. I don't want to feel like I need anything, because like something I've discovered as I've let go of all kinds of addictions is freedom. Like, freedom is actually being able to make a choice that isn't determined by, 50 million things that are going on inside of you that have nothing to do with the present moment. So when I think of addiction, I think of a spectrum. And I think of like people who, like, they can't control their behavior at all. Like, their behavior and their choices are completely dictated by like their needs, which come from like, whatever it is, whether it's alcohol or drugs or food or sex or whatever the thing is. And like, people have like, coffee is a relatively acceptable drug that like most people wouldn't think could be detrimental to your life, but I guarantee you there's people that have destroyed their relationships and their careers and their health by overindulging in coffee to a point where it's got really out of balance. And at the same time, we've all heard the stories of like high functioning lawyers and politicians and people in positions where they're on the outside looking quite successful, but they're using really hard substances to like as their way of like escaping from the stress in their lives. I guess I can't really speak on behalf of anybody and talk about their motivations, but one thing about me, again, I feel like I'm reintroducing myself a lot lately. But like, I have read a lot of the pop psychology books and like social science stuff and anything that's like about people and humans and being. Like, I just inhale that shit because I want to understand myself. And like, I'm at the point now where I've read enough different perspectives that when I'm like reading something new, I actually have like counter arguments and stuff. I'm like, I'm not sure about this, like, because I have all these other pieces of the puzzle that other people's ideas and hypotheses and things. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds really good. Like, I can see how this is like a best-selling author, because like that sounds fucking good. Like, that sounds like that, like I can put that in find the compartment in my belief system for that and lock that up, and that's done. Like, there's these kinds of things that we discover on our journeys that feel like the truth so much, or we wish that they were the truth, and we wish it was that simple, so we just go, yep. But then like as you go deeper, you find some contradictions and things. Like, I always keep coming back to that kind of stuff. Like, the word for it is epistemology. Epistemology is the study of beliefs, basically, or the study of knowledge, like how what is knowledge? Like, how do you know what you know? Yeah, so that and like addiction and my own models of reality and stuff. I think that I'm getting to a point now where my model of reality, like the picture that I have in my mind, is like a spider web. That, you know, if you were the spider and you originally had your web that you first made, and then you go, nah, this bit over here is not right, so you take it out and then you replace it. And like I've done that all over my web. And I feel like now my web of beliefs is like fairly robust. Like it's like a lot of the parts of it have been thoroughly gone over and checked, and it's a very solid structure, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because like as you become more sure, your mind closes and then possibility shrinks because then you're not thinking anymore. But at the same time, I feel like at a certain point in your life, and I'm like 30 now, entering my 30s, you should have somewhat of an idea of what you're fucking doing here. Um, I guess the problem is when you hit like puberty, like we all do, you first sort of come online as an independent being and think that you know everything. Like you just stick with that first web that you make, and you never really question it again. You think that you are. This is a little bit of a counterintuitive thing. Like when you're a young person, you think you're questioning everything, but really what you're doing is you're just cherry picking the things that you want to pick a fight with because it's convenient for you. Well, that's what I did. Like I'm always talking to myself. Like I feel like I just thought that I was questioning everything, but I was really just questioning the authority that was trying to really just tell me how it is. Because that's another disappointing thing for the free young person as they grow older. The young person who rebelled and went against everything and had to figure out everything on their own. One of the great discoveries is that, you know, mum and dad were right about most of it because they were like sitting where I'm sitting now after already going through all the trials and tribulations and figuring it all out. So like, it's funny, it's a bit of a like paradox because by the time you figure out that your parents are legends and they were just doing their best and actually trying to help you, you've already gone through all your rebellious stuff and already learned all those lessons that they were trying to help you learn faster. I'm sure that like people do this all differently, but like I feel like I did not utilize the support that was available for me throughout my entire life. Like a lot of it, definitely a lot of it. But to be fair, like I could always tell this story so many different ways. You know, I could say like my parents didn't understand me and I didn't have the education that was like actually good for me and like my needs and like the way that I learn and all that kind of stuff. But that just feels like being a little bit entitled. Like, but at the same time, like all the things that I've learned about mental health, like people do have different needs and grow in different ways and need different kinds of support and all this stuff. But yeah, I'm also a fan of like the radical responsibility, taking responsibility for absolutely everything, because when you take responsibility for everything, then everything's your problem and you can solve those problems. Tahi's looking at me really weird. She doesn't understand. This is still new to her. She's rarely present when I do a video journal. She's probably like concerned, like what is happening? Can I help you in some way? She's very social. She always wants to be a part of everything. She just wants to be close to you. She's changed a little bit since like I've been around, because I kind of just give her all of the attention that she wants and then send her on her way. But we just did a whole bunch of games before I started recording this, so she's a bit tuckered out as well. Like, she knows heaps of tricks and that's like one of the most engaging things for her. I think I've learned a lot about humans since I've had a dog, as weird as that sounds, because I've just learned how different dogs can be, and then I've had all these insights about how different humans can be as well. As weird as it sounds, like having a dog has taught me heaps about myself, because she's like totally praise motivated. Like, treats are pretty much useless for training her. You tell her she's a good girl and give her a pat, and you'll get far better results than if you like feed her stuff. There's one exception to that, and that's bacon. And I said bacon, and look at this. She's up. Did someone say bacon? Looking over at where the fridge is. Yeah, I was watching this show, Canine Intervention, or some people might know it as Carly Canine, and the fella on that, like, I didn't realize how far off the mark I was with my knowledge of dogs and how dogs be and how they're trained and stuff. But watching that show, he said like most dogs are praise motivated, and it's all about like being the pack leader. Like, they want a leader, and that needs to be you. So like, it's all about respect, and like, I set the tone for what we're doing, and I give the commands and she obeys them. And I used to think of that as like discipline and like bad, and like, oh, the poor dog being disciplined so much. But now I understand her, like, she really responds to very direct commands, and very like, you got to be instant with your praise and instant with your corrections. Like, if she does something wrong, she's got to know about it instantly. You can't whiffle waffle around. And yeah, I've learned a lot about like, and we are similar humans, you know. Like, if the consequence for our action is like too far removed from the action itself, like, we don't learn the lesson. So I guess I don't know what the insight to draw from that for anybody else is in the present moment, but I know throughout my life there was a lot of things that I felt like I got away with in the moment, and it was never corrected, but like, it cost me like a lot in the long run, because I continued the negative behaviors or the negative thought processes, and they just weren't corrected. And like, that's no one's fault or anything. Like, we're not talking about parenting or anything here. We're just talking about like, every kid that's growing up is going to, you know, lock in these ideas and learn these lessons that are actually not good lessons to learn, and lock in these ideas that aren't actually beneficial. So I don't know, feels like I'm waffling around with this journal now, but I just thought, like, while I've got a minute and I'm feeling like relatively relaxed, I'd flick the camera on, because I have been working around the clock. Like, I haven't stopped. I've been doing things in all directions, and eventually I'll start to share that as well. But I've been so elevated and busy that I've had to manage my state, like consciously manage my state, make sure that I don't drink too much coffee, and like force myself to go to bed, even though I'm still really motivated and there's still lots of work to do, because I know myself, and I know if I go out of balance, then I won't be able to maintain any of this. So I'm just like incrementally adding little bits and pieces to my plate, while still trying to maintain like the prior commitments that I made, like doing a video journal, writing a little bit of my book each day, which is like the third edition of said book. The first two will never see the light of day. And it's like absolutely like trash canned the first one, and then trash canned the second one. But I've made a commitment with this one that like, it's definitely going to be published, and I've even got a date, and I feel nervous to state that. But I've said I'll give myself a 50-day extension twice if I absolutely need it. But after those two 50-day extensions, that's it. That's the book done. And I'm like trying to really talk myself into like, you're doing this time. Like, it doesn't have to be a number one bestseller or anything like that. You just got to actually physically have the book in your hand this time. That's my commitment to myself. And if anybody is interested or, curious, the first one was more of like a love story, kind of centered around like relationships and love. And then I didn't like what I ended up with at the end of that. Like, I finished it kind of thing. Like, it was pretty much like a book. Like, you could read it and go, oh, okay, that's a story. And then the second one I tried to do was totally metaphysical. So, like, the spiritual journey, more or less, for lack of a better way to say it. But yeah, sort of, that was also like a story that you could read and go, oh yeah, that's a story. But I just didn't feel quite right about that. Like, I still, like, it was they're both awesome, like totally like readable, like interesting, and very a powerful exercise for myself, like a journal on steroids, like turning your life story into a narrative that's cohesive and like, makes sense as in a straight line. It's a very interesting exercise. But yeah, so the third and final one is like, I've just simplified it heaps. Like, I've made it way less emotional, way less metaphysical. Not to like completely take the essence of it away, but the third one's going to be all about cameras and like how the camera has been the constant in all of these mini stories throughout my life that have made up who I am today. So the first two books as well, like, I made a lot of mistakes that you can't just like edit out of a book. Like, obviously the love story one was like way too much of intimate details about my relationships and things that like nobody else's business kind of thing. But like, yeah, you can probably put two and two together, like having a big relationship breakdown and things like that just couldn't be a book anymore. And the metaphysical one, I had issues with, like, still the same, like telling other people's stories. Like, just couldn't write it in a way that felt like it was like mine, and like, and I had the right to kind of share what I was sharing, because it's like I've gained a lot of knowledge and been shown a lot of things that like I have no place really passing on, or like even talking about in such a public way. So it's been interesting. But like cameras, like, that's mine. Like, my relationship with cameras and how much cameras have been important throughout like the different stages of my life. Like, I can write that now. And I wasn't supposed to write a book at all until a long time. Like, until I finished, I gave myself 10 years to like document everything that I could outside the mainstream with mental health, and like have all these interviews and discussions and explore all these modalities and healing methods and talk to experts, professionals, and that it was going to be like, write this book at the end of all of that. And perfect marketing strategy, like, if you buy this book, you can also go and watch the actual interviews that I had with all of these people, which is a grandiose, ridiculous goal, which I will still achieve. But yeah, I was like, I need to do something in the meantime. And that's been like what I've been figuring out along the way. Like, I can't just wait for 10 years to be up to write this book and like make this documentary and do all these things. I've got to actually like, what is Kai going to do in the meantime? Because this isn't funded, like, I don't have funding for this. It's 100% self-created. There's Patreon, and we've had like some consistent support from a bunch of you legends. and people have bought shirts and stuff on Instagram, or like through Teespring actually, but like you see them on Instagram. And yeah, had a bunch of different ways to generate a little bit of extra funding for the project, but mostly it's been clients and working and just keeping it going any way that we can. But always knew that was going to be the case. Actually, there was a time early on where I did try to go for some government grants and funding and stuff, but I very quickly realized that like by the time I actually got funding, and it wouldn't be much, I would have wasted like years of my life like just learning how to jump through all those hoops. And then they would also want to have input and control over the project, which would make it not anything like what it is. Like the reason why what I do is so unique and original is because nobody tells me what to do. Like I've actually gone out and asked my own questions and sought my own answers. So it's been incredible. And I'm so grateful for all of the different mentors and supporters and just friends and people that have come into my life and shared different things. Even the guests and the interviews, like even the people that have just come into my life seeking some kind of help. I appreciate that too, because they're the people that I actually learned from the most. I've learned a lot about human beings and people and myself from spending time with like such a diverse range of incredible people, and everybody's incredible. Like I really can see now that like no matter where you're at, no matter who you are, no matter what your challenges are, like you can move in the direction of what you want your reality to look like, and you can arrive there if you're consistent and you keep taking those steps. Like whatever you can imagine for yourself, like you can achieve it, you can create it, you can live it. And that's an exciting thing to realize. And like my favorite thing is being able to awaken that realization in others, and they're like, whoa, like I can actually do this, like whatever it is. There's no reason why I can't. Like all of these reasons that I thought that I couldn't, they can actually be worked on and changed. So yeah, bit of a weird journal, but this is probably what should happen in journals. This is more authentic and natural, and I'm just talking about what I'm thinking and feeling. Because I keep going through these like cycles where I get really strict with myself about the journaling, and I'm like, you've got to make sense and be coherent and like have a topic to talk about so that it's actually watchable, because like you actually are making content for a YouTube channel that like you're intending to grow this channel. And then I go, well, no, I don't want to do that. I just want to be myself for real, because like that's the whole thing that would be interesting, is like not doing it for any particular reason and not trying to talk about the right thing or make just get views or do any of that. Like just actually be yourself and see what happens. But it's like this cycle, because then I'm like, oh, I don't know. But I think I'm finally done trying to manufacture anything for the video journals. Could be wrong. Could go around and do the cycle all over again. But I also want to get back to doing content for my main channel, like the more high quality, intentional content with like narratives and special guests and I guess a little bit fancier camera equipment. Like I just record these journals on my phone, whereas the main channel I record on like all kinds of cameras actually, and I even get help from other filmmakers and collaborate and do really cool stuff. Been intending to get back to that for so long, but I've just been flat out with like establishing my own world before I go on and like share more YouTube content and stuff. But I'm nearly ready. And like regardless, like there's so many things moving in so many different directions. It might not be YouTube. Like this might stop. I might disappear one day, just where did it go? But whatever happens, like know that I'm in a good place. Yeah. If you enjoyed this, please let me know somehow. Click the like button for me, leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and go check out kailives.com.